Star Wars, which is mostly considered as one of the greatest and most iconic movie franchises of all time. Welcome back to another video, you guys. It is me, Ryan, and we are here to break down me and Brady's top 9 favorite Star Wars films from 9 to 1. Now, I did just want to go ahead and address Rogue One and Solo will not be mentioned in this at all. It is just going to be a strictly episode 1 through episode 9. Which one did we like the most? Which one did we like the least? Well, for me, like a little background on Star Wars with my family. My dad was a kid when Star Wars first came out, so he is a gigantic Star Wars fan. He loves Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Star Trek, anything in that nature. So this was right up his alley, and when he had me, I was introduced to Star Wars because of how big of a fan he was. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it, you guys. Coming in at number 9, we have The Last Jedi. So this movie was not necessarily the greatest. The storyline, plots, and everything about it, we had Rey, who went off in the end of The Force Awakens to go find Luke because they needed, a savior for kind of, the universe and all of that so that they can fight the new empire, which was not necessarily the most, they were kind of uplifting themselves at the time, so they needed Luke as to be kind of like their new person to kind of help bring back balance to the Force. And in doing so, you got a different version of Luke than what you saw in the original trilogy, which was where he was a little bit more, he was an outcast of everything else that he knew. So he was a little bit more not happy. He was a very grumpy dude, and I just didn't really like that as much because that's not the Mark Hamill and the direction that I remember the Luke Skywalker character being. And I know there was a lot of issues background with Mark Hamill saying that he didn't like how Luke was being written or anything like that. But anyway, and then the scene where Leia gets her ship blown up by Kylo Ren and his army, and she was able to use the Force and kind of fly through space to get herself back to safety, just did not sit right with me. And to me, it was just very not what Star Wars is. And the storyline itself, it was a very long movie, and it just did not have a lot of things. Kylo Ren, who has conflict, he's conflicted with himself, being good, being bad, whatever. He killed his master and then tried to unite himself with Rey and then kind of them be their own thing. Obviously, it didn't turn out that way, but the movie just is not at the top of my list.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Brady. Coming in at number 9 is going to be The Last Jedi. Now, seeing Finn killing Captain Phasma and Andy Serkis coming back as Snoke is awesome. I love all of that. Especially with the Captain Phasma, we did not want to see her at all in that movie, and Finn finally killing her off is awesome. What doesn't sit right with me is how little this movie seems to care for some of the source material and the rest of the movies. Seeing the ship blow up and then Leia blowing out and then coming back in using the Force like she's Mary Poppins. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all! That has never even been close to happening in any other movie, and all of a sudden she can do it. For me, that doesn't sit right. So that's why it's at number 9 on my list.
But coming in at number 8, we have Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones is going to be episode 2, and this is where you first meet Anakin as more of a Padawan, and he's being trained by Obi-Wan. And there's finally Anakin starting to feel that there's, they're kind of holding him back a little bit, and holding him back, and he kind of starts to resent Obi-Wan, even though he's a very naturally gifted person when it comes to the Force. He's very much so kind of teaching him the basics and stuff like that. And Anakin deals with a lot of conflict. He left his mother, he left everything, and now he's in this with Obi-Wan. And then you have Count Dooku, who's kind of sitting in the side, kind of starting to bring the Sith back. Him and Palpatine are in the shadows. And then you have, some of my favorite scenes in the movie are going to be when Obi-Wan Kenobi goes to Kamino and meets Jango for the first time, and that's where you kind of get a little introduction to Jango and Boba Fett in that time period. But the storyline wasn't the greatest either. It was just, it seemed like the movie was a little rushed, and to me, the best scene was obviously going to be the battle on Geonosis, where all of the Jedi and Yoda and all of that, they all come to rescue Mace Windu, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Padme, and all of that. And on top of that, my other favorite scene that I really did like in the movie was you see Anakin's first true dark scene as a boy, and it's cool to kind of see him start to show flashes of what he was going to become in the future. But all in all, I definitely do believe that there are better things they could have done.
Coming in at number 8 is going to be The Phantom Menace. Now, personally, if I was rewatching the entire series again and I came across this movie, which is the first one, I would skip over it because there's not much here that really interests me in terms of wanting to rewatch it over and over again. However, the dynamic and chemistry between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon is probably my favorite part. I'm a big Liam Neeson guy, and then of course him with Obi-Wan is an awesome duo. But other than that, it is better than The Last Jedi slightly, but I just can't really put it any higher than that.
Coming in at number 7, we have The Phantom Menace, Episode 1. Now, to me, I do like this movie. I really do. I love Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, and I also really love Darth Maul in the movie, even though Darth Maul only lasted one movie, which I really am not a fan of because he was amazing. He was very quiet. He was a very assassinated person, and to me, it was just, he was so cool. But you get to meet Anakin as this young boy who all he wants to do is help Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon get off of Tatooine to kind of get their ship back and get Princess Amidala, or Queen Amidala, back to Naboo so that she can help stop the invasion of her home planet. So you see all of this. The only things that didn't really sit right with me especially was when Anakin kind of gets in the cockpit and then turns on the autopilot and then starts fighting in this war, and he's just a kid. He has no experience, no nothing. All he has is a midi-chlorian count that's higher than anybody has ever seen. To me, that was just a little weird. I wasn't really a big fan of that. But like the Duel of Fate scene with Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Darth Maul is top 3 best lightsaber fights of all time.
Coming in at number 7 is Attack of the Clones. And for Attack of the Clones, the awesome thing about the Attack of the Clones is that it has the Yoda fight with Captain Dooku. And yes, it's a CGI fight, but man, that is like one of my favorite versions of Yoda. I absolutely love him in that movie. I think he finally shows off why everyone's scared of him and respects him. I love that scene. But what really is the downfall of this movie and what puts it at 7 for me is think that just his dramaticism and him always thinking he's better than what he is really what pulls it off from this movie and makes it at 7 for me.
At number 6, we have Return of the Jedi, Episode 6. This movie is really good. I definitely wanted to put this higher, but there were just some things above it that I liked a lot more. One of the things that I really liked, I loved the redemption. You get Darth Vader's full character arc from boy to Sith to redeeming himself for his son. You get to see Luke, who is determined to get Darth Vader to turn back to being good, and I love that. I love that he always has faith in his father, even if he wants to like believe that his father's gone. He knows he's never really gone, and you always see the conflict in Darth Vader each and every movie in some way. And to me, I didn't like the Ewoks. The Ewoks were very corny, and I just was not a fan, even though they were extremely adorable. The movie itself wasn't the greatest movie. I liked them on Tatooine at the beginning, kind of rescuing Han from being in carbon freeze. But then the middle of the movie is just very slow, very, not much is going on. And then boom, the end fight on Endor, along with Luke and Darth Vader fighting in front of the Emperor Palpatine, who then Luke defeats Darth Vader, and then Palpatine attacks him, and then Darth Vader saves him. I don't know. Like, to me, that's just a really great, nice send-off to Darth Vader and all of that. And then this was eventually supposed to be the end of the trilogy, and it was supposed to be a done deal. But to me, that's a great way to end it.
However, coming in at number 6, I have The Last Skywalker. Now, what also, again, this is above 7, 8, 9, which is why it's at 6. But the only thing I didn't really like about this movie was that they brought back Palpatine. And this time, a very, very, very annoying, unnecessary Palpatine. That I think they could have done something a lot more interesting and better with the story for Rey's arc and Palpatine's arc at the end of the day. That would have been more interesting. However, what I did love about this movie was the return of Lando. I don't know the actor's name that plays him, but I love him. I don't see him in much anything other than that movie, but I love him. And then the Rey and Kylo fight at the end is perfect.
That's perfect.
Number 5, Rise of Skywalker, the finale that came out in 2019 with Rey, Finn, and all of them, that whole character cast. This is the finale. A lot of people don't like this movie, but for me, I actually really do like this movie. I really liked the twist on bringing Palpatine back. I wasn't really expecting it until I saw in theaters with my own eyes that it was him, even if it was a clone of him. And you still have Kylo Ren conflicted on wanting to be bad, but believing that there's still good in him. You know, his mother really believes that. Leia, Han, all of them, even if Han is gone, he still feels regret for what he had done to Han Solo in the 7th movie. So Rey's trying to help him kind of turn. And then you start to see Rey's darker side. And then you hear about her, you know, her history on how she's the granddaughter of Palpatine. And to me, that was just a major twist that I never expected. We had rumors on being, you know, a descendant of like Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon or anything in that nature. But no, we got Palpatine, and we started to see where she thought she was going to be turning into a Sith. And that was just her throne. That was what her destiny was. And then she proved it all wrong and prevailed, you know, had all of the Jedi's voices. That was really cool to hear. And it was just, they all made her rise together. And it just made it a really nice send-off for that. And I really do love this finale more than you guys will ever know.
Coming in at number 5, though, is going to be the Force Awakens. Now, in this movie, this is the first of the most recent trilogy. It's where Rey, Finn, and Poe all meet each other, and I love it so, so much. I think they all have great, great chemistry. Definitely not the best in the series, but I definitely put them at number 2. Also in this movie, what I really, really love is that snow fight between Kylo Ren and Rey. It's electric. The blue and red go so perfect with the white snow. It's an amazing, amazing scene. What I would say puts a downfall in this movie, however, is that you can see throughout the movie how much Kylo Ren despises his father, Han Solo. And at the end, where he finally kills him on that bridge, it's very, very predictable of him saying, I know what I must do, but I don't think I have the will to do it, and all that stuff, and Han thinking he's there for him, but in reality, he's not. It's heartbreaking, but at the same time, it's very predictable, and that's what kind of puts it on the lower end for me, but still at 5.
And at number 4, we have The Force Awakens. This is the intro to the last trilogy, episode 7. And to me, this reminds me a lot of A New Hope, which I also have not named yet, but A New Hope, it was very similar to that, and I really enjoyed it. You got an intro to all of these new characters: Finn, Rey, Poe, Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren, you know, he was this good guy that turned bad, was seduced to be bad, and he was very conflicted even during this movie until he kills his father, to think that that would be like the deal breaker for him, but that wasn't necessarily the case. It was a really weird twist. You know, we said goodbye to Harrison Ford's Han Solo in this movie as an alive character, and the only thing I really did not like at all, it did not sit right with me, finally did the reveal that Rey was going to be, like, she had Force abilities. A girl that had never picked up a lightsaber before took down Kylo Ren, a guy that has been training his entire life, and she did it with no experience, no nothing. And it was just very weird. That's why I liked in the 9th movie better, where he defeats her. And this movie is really good. It is a little longer movie, but to me, the storyline of episode 7 is actually a really good one, and I might be on the unpopular, but I really do love this movie.
But coming in at number 4 is A New Hope. Now, it's awesome because I love this movie because, one, it is more of an origin story. It's the first time we see C-3PO and R2-D2, and the chemistry between Luke, Han Solo, and Leia is electric. Like I was saying in the previous movie, that relationship is second to this one. I think they have the most dynamic trio chemistry, along with Chewbacca, so the quadruple chemistry, almost out of any movies I've ever seen, especially series. I love their chemistry here. I think it is a great, great, great start to a trilogy. Also, what I love about this movie is the fighter jet scene is electric. It is one of the best space fight scenes I've ever seen, and I love everything about it. The only downfall of this movie, and it is a slight nitpick by me, I understand it's more their wits coming back to each other, and they kind of fight the same as we learn in another movie. But the fight scene between Vader and Obi-Wan has always came off as like, oh, why is this so slow? I understand why, but I wish they could have made it more interesting.
Brings us to number 3, A New Hope, the first ever Star Wars movie that premiered in 1977 with Mark Hamill. To me, this movie was great. It's a little bit older, so it doesn't hold up as well, but episode 4 is great. Now, I love Darth Vader. He is very intimidating in this. James Earl Jones nails the voice of Darth Vader beautifully. And I love Carrie Fisher and that whole group. Their dynamic is so complete, and you can tell that it just carried along this movie. And then you get Obi-Wan in his older state, who is trying to teach Luke the ways of the Force with what little time that he knows he has left. It's so kind of cool to kind of see where Obi-Wan has come from to where he is at that point. He's a little bit more broken because of what happened with Anakin and all of that, and he knows that the only way that he's going to kind of go out the way that he knows he needs to go out is to kind of take defeat.
He is here.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And to me, that's really cool because it leaves the movie in such a really weird state. And then you get Luke, who blows up the Death Star in one of the most lucky shots ever, trusting himself. A New Hope masterpiece.
Coming into the top 3 is Return of the Jedi. I can't say how pleasantly surprised I was when I first saw this movie. One, we finally see Jabba dead. Leia strangles him to death. Not only do we see Luke and Leia becoming siblings, but Vader eventually turns out and helps Luke at the end. I absolutely love this scene, and I love this movie, but this movie also has possibly my favorite scene in all of the entire series and movies of Star Wars. It's the scene of Vader and Luke walking side to side, and they're talking, and he basically summarizes and says, I know there's some Anakin still in you. And that's what makes it so interesting for me, is that he sees through him, and Vader's like, no, you can't turn off on the dark side. I love their dynamic. I think this is one of the best dynamics, and it was so close to cracking the top 2, but I just couldn't put it over.
And at number 2, my unpopular opinion of the day, The Empire Strikes Back, Episode 5. Now, to me, I do think 1 and 2 can be flipped depending on what you're looking for in a movie. The Empire Strikes Back, out of all of the Star Wars movies, has the best storyline of all of them, and it's not even close. Where you see Luke, who searches for Yoda to try and get training to defeat his own father, is amazing. And the fact that he's so self-conceited and he doesn't think that some of these lessons that Yoda's trying to teach him are necessary. But here is a guy who finally gives into that and accepts the training to eventually go fight his own father in this war that he originally wasn't even going to be any part of. So he goes off against Yoda's wishes. Instead of completing his training, he takes the shortcut route to go fight his own father, because he knows that Han, Leia, C-3PO, and Chewie are all going into a trap, and they're the bait for Luke to come. So Luke arrives. He has one of the second best, in my opinion, second best lightsaber fight of all of them, where he fights Darth Vader, and then you get the big reveal at the end.
I am your father.
And that, to me, is perfect. Like, that is one of the most iconic lines that I guarantee almost every single person, even if you haven't seen Star Wars, knows in some way, shape, or form. But The Empire Strikes Back, to me, has the best storyline. It's my dad's favorite. We used to sit there and watch this movie all the time, and he would always talk about how meaningful this movie was in his generation. And it just makes me appreciate the movie a lot more, even though it's not a part of mine.
But coming in at number 2, I have The Revenge of the Sith. Now, this was also very close to becoming number 1, because this movie has so many pluses to it and barely any negatives. For starters, it is one of the best lightsaber fights with Obi-Wan and General Grievous. I love the forehands on General Grievous. I I adore it. I think Obi-Wan is at his best in this movie. This is the best version of Obi-Wan in my opinion. Also, what isn't really talked about in terms of movies a lot is, and there should be more, is the cinematic score. And one of the best ever, John Williams, is, in my opinion, at his best in this movie. I think this is the third best act almost out of anything I've ever seen. I love the end of this third act because of the final fight scene too, and the lava. It's so beautiful, so gorgeous. I love it more than anything. But also the cinematic score, like I was saying, by John Williams, Anakin's betrayal is the most intense music to go with a scene like this. To see someone turn and do all that he does in the third act, from killing those children to choking Padme to fighting his mentor Obi-Wan. That score of Anakin's betrayal by John Williams just it emphasizes everything in the entire third act, and I love it more than anything. Also, that last fight scene on the lava, and then just the heartbreak between Obi-Wan and Anakin as he's burning in the lava. And Obi-Wan's, "I tried to save you. You were the chosen one." It's electric. It's everything. I think this is one of the best scenes and one of the best third acts I've ever seen in my life.
And finally, at number 1, we have Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, Revenge of the Sith to me is my favorite Star Wars movie. And like I said, these Empire Strikes Back and Revenge of the Sith are interchangeable. Revenge of the Sith has the best fight choreography and lightsaber duels of any Star Wars movie, and it is not even close. Now, but The Empire Strikes Back has the best storyline, so it really depends ultimately what you're looking for. But to me, Revenge of the Sith, where you see Anakin, who is a Jedi Knight, but not a Jedi Master, and he feels shorted on this, is really not liking and like not trusting Obi-Wan and starting to veer more towards the Chancellor and his trust, who has been hiding as Emperor Palpatine this whole time, but has control over all of the Senate and all the courts and everything. So he is a gigantic mess that they know they cannot trust, that the Jedi know they can't trust. So they're trying to get him out of office, and Anakin's gaining a trust. Then they ask Anakin to spy on the Chancellor. And that just does not sit right with Anakin. He thinks it's shady, which I agree, it is shady, but I know they had good reason for it, but he couldn't see it at the time. So now in his dark mind, where his head's going, he thinks that the Jedi are kind of, they're a little bit more evil than they're leading on to be, while Palpatine is really bringing this empire from the shadows up, and he's trying to manipulate Anakin into turning.
You're the Sith Lord.
A powerful Sith you will become.
When Anakin kills Mace Windu and realizes that he knew what he did was wrong, but he did it anyway, and by that point there was no turning back for him. And then you get him killing all of the younglings in the temple, which is a very dark and very sad scene especially. But I gotta say, Hayden Christensen nailed every single part. He was able to play the good kid. He was able to play basically turning into a Sith. He played everything great, in my opinion. And then you get the best lightsaber fight out of all of them. You get
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
get Anakin versus Obi-Wan, Master versus Apprentice. And they just go down. Their fight styles are the same, so they're pulling out the same moves and everything. And it was just so intense. And then eventually Obi-Wan defeats Anakin because of Anakin feels like his power that he was given, that he thinks he learned, was going to be his ultimate strength, and it turned out to be his biggest weakness, and it kind of hurt him in the end, leading to this.
You're my brother, Anakin! I loved you! High ground!
Then you get Anakin, who finally is broken, head to toe. He's done for. And then you get him turning into Darth Vader, and then which Padme has kids, which is the introduction to Luke and Leia.
Is Anakin alright?
And then the Emperor even manipulated Anakin even more, even after he was already at his lowest point, by saying that Anakin killed Padme.
The Jedi turned against me. Don't you turn against me?
And that it was just done. So, to me, this movie alone is just so good. It has the fall of the good guys. It has the rise of the bad guys, which I do like movies where kind of the villain kind of wins. and that was just very unique at the end of the day. But to me, this was my prime Star Wars childhood memory that my dad could not get me to turn this movie off whatsoever. It was the best Star Wars movie, in my opinion, of all time.
Coming in at number 1, and may not be surprised to most people, is The Empire Strikes Back. Now, what I love about this movie, seeing it for the first time, was last year. What I love about this movie was just the way it looked. I thought it was just a very well-directed movie in terms of how the scenes were shot. And of course, it has some amazing pieces and parts that make it such a great movie. And of course, one of the best sequels of all time. One, it's Han and Leia's relationship. It's already starting something in the first movie, but this movie just amplifies it to an us. Han's, his smugness and everything about him. I love it. Leia's like denying of it and just like she's kind of interested. It makes it for perfect. Also, one of my, probably second or first for my favorite scenes in Star Wars is Luke becoming a Jedi with Yoda. And Yoda's acting a little crazy. That was a little weird. I didn't really expect that when I first watched it. But Luke becoming a Jedi and having Yoda on his back and them talking and talking and talking and learning is such a cool scene. And it doesn't need all the action. It has awesome dialogue, awesome background, and a great story to go with it. And also, you know, The Empire Strikes Back has one of the most famous quotes, "I am your father, Luke, I am your father." It has one of the most famous quotes of all time in it, so that's definitely a plus. And again, there's like basically nothing I could say wrong about this movie. Lando was amazing in it. I love everything about this movie. The only thing that I could even think about nitpicking on it is the Luke and Leia kiss, but like you find out later they're siblings. Little weird detail to like include in there and then change it in the future, but it's not bothering me. It doesn't change my enjoyment on it, and that's why it comes in at number 1. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you sub to the Civil Cinematics, and my name is Brady. I'll see you guys later. Peace.
So that is going to do it, you guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you guys know whenever we post anything new. We have gotten off to a great start on this channel, and I know we are so excited for what is to come. I do just want to go ahead and say thank you to Brady for kind of going into this video with me. I watched Star Wars with him for the first time, so I know he likes it a lot. Leave a like and post any comments on what you think we should kind of go on next. We are starting to kind of build up some juice and should expect a podcast here in the next couple of days. With that being said, this is Ryan. Thank you for watching. Take care.